Books on Tape presents Shadow Warriors, Inside the Special Forces, by Tom Clancy with General Carl Steiner and Tony Colts. Read by Jonathan Marosz. Dedication. This book is dedicated to all the great soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, with whom and for whom I have been privileged to serve during my 35 years of service. Among these, an elite brotherhood of warriors deserves the highest possible recognition, our nation's Special Operations Force, past and present. To those who have sacrificed their lives in the defense of our freedoms, we owe our deepest respect and gratitude, and to their families we offer our deepest sympathy and prayers for their future. General Carl Steiner, retired. Author's Note. During any given week, an average of more than 3,500 Special Operations Forces, SOF, are deployed overseas in some 69 countries. Their missions range from counter-drug assistance and demining to peacekeeping, disaster relief, military training assistance, and many other special mission activities. As such, they function as instruments of U.S. national policy and develop relationships with the militaries and governments of the host nations in a way that best serves our national interests now and in the future. In the writing of this book, we have attempted to include all the information possible about the capabilities of these unique forces, the sacrifices that they make, and the mission areas of their responsibility, as well as just tell some good stories. Needless to say, however, some of these missions and capabilities are sensitive and cannot be revealed for national security reasons. Likewise, the names of some of the personnel, as well as family members, must be protected for personal security reasons. We know the reader will understand that there are some details that are not appropriate for discussion here, and will pardon any necessary omissions. Tom Clancy and General Carl Steiner, retired. Chapter 1. Monday, October 7th, 1985. Brigadier General Carl Steiner, the commander of the Joint Special Operations Task Force, was returning from his morning run at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, when his J-2 intelligence officer, Colonel Mike Flynn, met him at the gate. "A cruise ship has been hijacked in the Mediterranean," Flynn told him coolly but with urgency, "and Americans are very likely on board." No other organization had the capability to recapture a ship on the high seas, and Steiner knew they would certainly be called in, and soon. Steiner was a slender man of 6 feet, with a crisp but not rigid military bearing and a comfortable, easy look. At the same time, he had always been driven by an underlying intensity and a deep competitiveness. It wasn't just that he wanted to be the best, or to lead his troops to be the best. All officers want that. But that he had time and again figured out ways to make it happen. As he and Flynn hurried toward the headquarters building, Steiner was already processing the news. He knew that Flynn's sparse information was all that was then available, or else Flynn would have told him more. Even so, he had to begin initial actions based on that slender thread. Through long hours of intense planning, training, and rehearsal, Josodif had developed force packages for virtually any anticipated crisis situation. These were always ready to go within a few hours, as long as there were airplanes available to haul his men. Based on the planning and rehearsals, Steiner focused on what he had to work out right away. "It's a tough target. Got to get more detailed information," he thought to himself. "We'll have a long way to go and have to get on the road as soon as possible. Must order up airlift now. And we must find out the location of the ship." As these thoughts went through his mind, he remained calm. When special forces have a job to do, the job must be done fast, accurately, and efficiently. It is likely to be extremely complex, with many lives at risk and many unknown variables. Facing these conditions, people in these units do not waste their time and effort expressing feelings. They are businesslike, always focusing on the mission at hand, looking especially for vulnerabilities that can be exploited to solve the problem in the cleanest, most complete way possible. Once he reached the headquarters, he went without pausing to the Joint Operations Center, JOC. A high-tech war room complete with computer workstations and secure communications to all Gesodif units, the Pentagon, and major commands throughout the world. There he would review the latest intelligence and learn firsthand everything anyone knew about the incident in the Mediterranean. His staff principals had already assembled, waiting for his guidance. The task force maintained its own 24-hour intelligence center, complete with watch officers, military officers, and civilians expert at picking out intelligence indicators of an impending crisis, analysts, and databases covering every known terrorist organization. Terminals connected the command with all major news networks, including Reuters and the BBC. The first indication of a developing incident often appeared as a news item. Gesodif also had its own people, resident in all U.S. intelligence agencies, always looking for indicators of terrorist activities, as well as already existing information that had not seemed important to analysts in those agencies. In most cases, the headquarters learned of terrorist incidents early, and they usually had the most complete information about them. Steiner knew that all available intelligence information had already been transmitted by the staff to the units that would be involved. This also meant that all his units would have begun to ready their forces for deployment, while anticipating further guidance from him. They always made maximum use of the time available. In this business, time was a most precious asset. Before Steiner had taken this command, previous tours in the Middle East had taught him a lot about terrorists and how they operated. For instance, while he had been the chief of training for the modernization of the Saudi Arabian National Guard from 1975 to 1977, he had had a chance to take the measure of Yasser Arafat and his chief lieutenants. Along with other dignitaries from the region, the Palestinians had been invited to a graduation dinner for an officer candidate class by King Khalid and Prince Abdullah, the commander of the National Guard. Arafat's lieutenants were impressive, no doubt about it. Most of them had advanced degrees from American universities. They were all well-dressed, very sharp, well-spoken, and knowledgeable about world affairs. Arafat was obviously the leader, and clearly an intelligent and remarkable man. But the lieutenants who made things work struck Steiner as truly formidable. In years to come, that impression proved terribly accurate. Later, in 1983, Steiner was assigned to Lebanon. There he got a first-hand experience of terrorism and its effects. A U.S. ambassador had been assassinated. While he was there, more than 60 people at the American embassy, and later more than 200 U.S. Marines, were killed by bombs. In those days, Beirut was not only an armed camp with many hostile factions, but a place where fighting might break out anywhere at any time. No one was safe, and death was an ever-present risk, from snipers, crossfires between factions, ambushes, and indiscriminate shelling by heavy artillery and rocket fire. The shelling sometimes involved thousands of rounds, which reduced entire sections of the city to rubble in half an hour. It was not an easy assignment, yet for Steiner it proved to be rewarding. It offered a chance to learn lessons he could get nowhere else. You learned how to survive, or you didn't. You learned whom to trust in a life-or-death situation, and whom, by faction or religious motivation, you could not trust. You learned to think like a terrorist. The evolution of Gesodif. The traditional function of wars is to change an existing state of affairs. In the early 1970s, a new form of warfare, or maybe a new way of practicing a very old form of warfare, emerged: state-supported terrorism. Nations that were not militarily powerful learned to use terrorist tactics to obtain objectives and concessions they never could win through diplomatic or military means. When this new form of warfare broke out, the United States quickly showed itself unprepared to cope with it. It had neither a national policy nor intelligence capabilities aimed at terrorism, nor any military forces adequately trained and prepared to respond to terrorist provocations. Although the United States was the most powerful nation in the world, its military capabilities were focused on the Soviet Union, and not on something like this. In 1972, Israeli athletes at the Munich Olympics were massacred by Black September terrorists. This outrage...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?